Washington Post reporter Ed O'Keefe is in Washington and joins us now. Ed, you hear him saying it's not flip-flopping, but certainly reconsidering some things. What do you make of Trump reversing his position, or seeming to, on deporting undocumented immigrants?
Oh, it's very simple. He's doing so badly with Hispanics, he needs to do something to chip away at Hillary Clinton's commanding lead, or he runs the risk. Actually, it's pretty clear he will most likely lose the White House. It's just becoming increasingly mathematically impossible for anyone to win the White House without getting at least roughly 40% of the Hispanic vote at the least, especially at a time when the share of white voters continues to drop, especially in presidential elections, and is poised to do so again this year. So he knows that this is a sort of a gateway issue, if you will, for Hispanic voters, that you have to be talking about it respectfully, in a nuanced way, and certainly not the way he's discussed it for the last 14 months. Whether or not he can do anything, though, to reverse the trend remains to be seen, and frankly is pretty unlikely. I've said before here and elsewhere that unless he's apologizing every single day for what he did on the first day of his campaign and makes clear that he's not going to be espousing those views or trying to implement that kind of policy, it's virtually impossible for him to reverse his current standing with Hispanics. Yeah,
you just sort of hit on something. He can say one thing, but that doesn't mean that the voters will believe him. Is there really any way, other than an apology, that it seems that maybe he can bring some of these Hispanic voters in?
Well, sure, but again, he'd have to make that apology on a pretty frequent basis, and if he does, he runs the risk, frankly, of upsetting the base of his support, which from the start has been pleased that he talks so tough and is advocating such tough measures when it comes to illegal immigration. So it's a real risk for him. But I think what's happened here is the new set of campaign advisors and the Republican National Committee, which increasingly is playing a bigger role in running the campaign, is telling him, if you don't do something to soften your tone on this issue, you're gonna have a really hard time winning places like Florida, Virginia, which is pretty much out of the picture at this point, Colorado. You may find yourself in a closer race than you won in Arizona, maybe even in Texas, because of the way he talks about these issues. And look, it's been a motivating factor for Hispanic voters across the country. You guys had a poll a few weeks ago. It said 80% of Hispanic voters in Arizona are enthusiastic and eager to turn out this year because of what Trump has been doing and saying. That's not helpful for him come November.
You mentioned those usual states where we talk about going after the Hispanic voters, but the Clinton campaign is also going after them in some different areas like Georgia.
Yeah, we've discovered in the last few weeks that as her numbers improve, as she starts to pull away from Trump in places like Virginia and Colorado, which may very well soon, in most measures, drop off the battleground list, she's able now to move resources into new states. They're moving a lot of manpower into North Carolina, for example. Well, there's a growing Hispanic population around Charlotte, around Fayetteville. You go to Georgia, it's around Atlanta. You go to southeastern Pennsylvania, there's a growing population of Puerto Ricans and Dominican voters there who've moved either into the state or moved from the islands to Pennsylvania for whatever reason. If you can drive up the registration and the turnout among Hispanics, add that to African American voters, plus the white liberals or progressives that might show up in these battleground states or the states that she'd like to flip from red to blue, her campaign believes that's enough. But the critical element is the Hispanic vote in those places and upping the number of those that turn out. Historically, it's been pretty low. It's hard to register these people, motivate them, inform them, and make sure they turn up.